Good evening. The date is Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. The region, of course, is East Asia. Tonight, we're turning our attention to the waters of the Pacific, where the currents of diplomacy, you could say, are colliding with the hard realities of naval steel.
And they are colliding very quickly.
It feels like it. Over the past 2 weeks, a really complex web of maritime tensions and military maneuvering has tightened around the Philippines, Taiwan, and the South China Sea.
It's a situation that's defined by a very delicate and dangerous balance. We're really witnessing a shift from rhetoric to physical enforcement.
And welcome to the deep dive. If that sounded a bit like a broadcast from, say, the 1960s, it's because the stakes in East Asia right now really do feel like they're echoing that era of high-wire tension.
It is a fascinating mix, if a little unnerving. You have old-school geography islands, straits, choke points, and it's all clashing with modern gray zone warfare.
Gray zone. We're going to talk
Yeah.
a lot about that. We're not just talking about ships passing in the night anymore.
No, not at all. We're talking about fishing vessels that are acting as literal walls and electronic signals serving as the new warning shots.
Exactly. And our mission tonight is to cut through all that noise from the last 14 days. We've got a lot of sources on the table: satellite data, diplomatic cables, local news reports.
And of course, we should mention the intelligence engine behind this, our sponsor, ProWave AI.
Right. And just to clarify for you, the listener, the analysis we are about to walk through today comes from Stylo News.
Which is, for those who haven't used it, essentially the consumer-facing version of Stylo Intel Ops.
Which is the software used by enterprise and military operators, correct?
That is the one. So when we talk about things like pattern of life analysis later on, we're effectively using the same caliber of tools that global decision makers are looking at right now. It lets us see the signal in the static.
And there is a lot of static, so let's look at the map. We have a historic defense pact, we have a massive natural gas discovery that complicates everything, and a shift in military tactics near Taiwan.
Yeah.
But if you had to pin down the central theme of the last 2 weeks, what would it be?
The theme is the definitive shift from rhetoric to physical enforcement. For years, we've heard complaints, we've seen diplomatic notes. Now we are seeing monster ships asserting what they call administrative control. We're seeing electronic jamming. And we are seeing a critical energy discovery that might just force the Philippines to take risks they've avoided for a decade.
Let's start right there then in the Philippines. The last 2 weeks in Manila have been frantic. On January 15th, you had that signing ceremony for the Japan-Philippines Defense Pact.
Right.
Now, to a casual observer, this just looks like another photo op. Why does this particular agreement matter so much?
It matters because of the boring stuff. Logistics, in military terms, amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics.
Sure.
This agreement allows for the tax-free mutual provision of military supplies. So we're talking fuel, ammunition, food during their joint exercises.
So Japanese troops in the Philippines can effectively eat and refuel on the local dime, and vice versa.
It creates a framework for what's called reciprocal troop access. It mirrors the visiting forces agreement the Philippines has with the United States. But the deeper insight here is really about Japan's evolution.
How so?
Well, Japan has traditionally held to a strictly self-defense posture since World War II. By signing this, Japan is pivoting toward a networked security architecture. They aren't just protecting the Japanese home islands anymore.
They're getting more involved regionally.
They are actively engaging in the security of the entire first island chain.
It feels like the Philippines is rapidly becoming the most popular partner in the region. And that timing isn't accidental, is it? Because just 4 days later, January 19th, President Marcos Jr. made a massive announcement about energy. Malampaya East 1.
This is the economic driver that changes the entire security calculus. The original Malampaya gas field supplies about 20% of the Philippines' power, but it's running dry.
They're facing a real energy crisis then.
A genuine crisis. Blackouts. Economic stalling. And then they find this new deposit near Palawan.
98 billion cubic feet of gas. That's a lifeline.
It is, but here's the catch. And in the South China Sea, there's always a catch. This field is physically near the existing infrastructure, so it's cheap to develop, but it sits squarely within waters that are contested by China's 9-dash line.
So by drilling there, Manila isn't just looking for gas, they're planting a flag.
Precisely. And immediately after the announcement, the Philippines rushed Coast Guard vessels to the area. They anticipate interference.
So if China blocks this,
If China blocks this development, they aren't just blocking a boat. They are threatening the Philippines' entire energy grid. That raises the stakes from a maritime dispute to a national security survival issue for Manila.
And when we talk about blocking, we have to talk about the hardware China is deploying. On January 26th, sources confirmed the presence of the monster ship.
I love that name.
It's a great name. It's actually the Chinese Coast Guard vessel 5901.
And monster is a very appropriate adjective. This thing displaces 12,000 tons.
Help the listener visualize that. How big is 12,000 tons?
Well, a standard U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, a warship bristling with missiles, is about 9,000 tons.
Okay, so this Coast Guard ship
Is 30% larger than a frontline U.S. destroyer. It towers over everything else in the region, and it's painted white to signal law enforcement, but it has the physical presence of a capital ship.
And it wasn't just parading around in open water. It was parked right at the Bataan Islands.
Strategically, that is the most critical spot on the map right now. The Bataan Islands are the northernmost tip of the Philippines. On a clear day, you can almost see Taiwan.
Right in the Bashi Channel.
They're the choke point.
Yeah.
If a conflict breaks out over Taiwan, the U.S. Navy and its submarines would likely need to pass right through there. By parking the 5901 there within 40 nautical miles of Ipayat Island, Beijing is signaling, we can close this gate whenever we want.
It was an intrusive patrol.
It was designed to be seen.
But here's where the narrative gets complicated. Because at the exact same time the monster ship is intimidating the North, we saw this very bizarre moment of cooperation further south.
The humanitarian paradox. Yes. This was the incident with the MV Devon Bay, a Singapore-flagged cargo ship crewed mostly by Filipinos. And between January 22nd and 24th, it capsized near Scarborough Shoal.
And Scarborough Shoal is usually ground zero for water cannons and ramming incidents.
It is. But in this case, the Chinese Coast Guard and PLA forces actually moved in and rescued 17 sailors.
So the bad guys became the heroes for a day.
Well, saving lives is obviously the priority, and credit where it's due, but you have to look at the information warfare angle here. China used this rescue to demonstrate what they call administrative control.
Ah, I see. So it's not just we're nice people, it's we're the police here.
Exactly. It reinforces their claim of sovereignty. They can say to the world, look, we are the ones managing maritime safety in these waters. We're the responsible power. It allows them to act like the legitimate government in that territory.
Even while, at the same time, diplomatic protests were flying back and forth about airspace violations.
In the very same week, it's a brilliant, if cynical, move. We'll rescue your sailors, but you still need our permission to be here. That's the message.
Let's shift our focus north. If the Philippines is the shield, Taiwan remains the target. And the tactics there have shifted gear in just the last 10 days. We aren't just seeing patrols, we are seeing what you described as a saturation strategy.
This is the L-shaped blockade. Around January 28th, we tracked a massive mobilization of the maritime militia. We are talking about approximately 2,000 fishing vessels.
2,000. That's a fleet larger than most navies.
It's a swarm. They formed a formation roughly 466 kilometers long northeast of Taiwan.
But these are fishing boats. Are they even armed? Can a real navy just sail right through them?
And that is the beauty of the gray zone. You can't just open fire on fishing boats. It looks terrible on the international stage. But physically, 2,000 boats create a navigational hazard that effectively closes the ocean.
It's denial of access.
You don't need a blockade declaration. You just create a traffic jam that no cargo ship wants to risk entering.
And while the fishing boats were clogging the water, the PLA Navy was doing something invisible, but maybe even more dangerous. On February 1st, we got reports of electronic warfare.
This is a significant escalation. CCTV footage and reports from the South China Morning Post indicate that PLA warships used electronic countermeasures, specifically jamming to warn off foreign military aircraft near Taiwan.
Explain jamming for us. They're not shooting missiles, right?
No kinetic projectiles. They're firing electrons. They direct high-powered energy at the sensors of an approaching aircraft. If you're the pilot, suddenly your radar goes white.
Wow.
Your communications might crackle and die. Your missile lock warnings might go off falsely.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. It's what's called a soft kill. It blinds the opponent. It forces them to turn back because they can't see the battlefield. But because you didn't scratch the paint on their plane, it doesn't automatically trigger Article 5 or a war.
Pushing right up to the line.
Right up to the breaking point. And this fits into that term we hear a lot, salami slicing.
Right.
We saw another slice on January 23rd with a surveillance drone flight over Protus Island. Protus is controlled by Taiwan, but it sits way out in the South China Sea.
So sending a drone isn't an invasion.
Exactly. But if Taiwan shoots it down, China cries victim. If Taiwan does nothing, China establishes a new norm. We fly here now. It slices away one more layer of Taiwan's security buffer.
And the hardware backing all of this up is getting scarier. We have reports on the Fujian, China's newest aircraft carrier.
The Fujian is engaging in sea trials now. And this is a huge leap forward because of one piece of tech: electromagnetic catapults.
Like the ones in the new U.S. carriers.
Correct. The old Chinese carriers used ski jumps, those ramps on the front. That limited how heavy the planes could be. You couldn't launch a plane fully loaded with fuel and heavy bombs, and you couldn't launch heavy radar or early warning aircraft.
So the catapults changed the game.
With the catapults on the Fujian, they can launch the full suite of air power. It extends their eyes and ears and their strike range drastically deeper into the Pacific.
So we have blockades jamming supercarriers. Let's zoom out to the capitals. What's the view from the top? Because Beijing seems to be going through some internal house cleaning.
House cleaning is putting it mildly. On January 24th, Beijing announced an investigation into General Zhang Yuxia.
And for context, who is he?
He is the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. In the Chinese military hierarchy, he sits at the absolute right hand of Xi Jinping. He was considered a staunch ally.
So charging him with serious violations, which usually means corruption, that is a massive deal.
It's a seismic shock. It suggests an intense consolidation of power. President Xi is purging the very top tier, ensuring absolute, unquestioning loyalty.
So does that make them winner or stronger? I mean, usually purging your generals right before a conflict is a bad idea.
Short term, it disrupts operations. Everyone is looking over their shoulder, afraid to make a decision. But long term, it signals that Xi is willing to break the system to ensure the military is a tool completely under his control.
And Washington is watching this. We had testimony from Secretary of State Rubio on January 28th. He didn't mince words.
No, he was very blunt. He assessed that Xi views unification with Taiwan as a personal historical mission. And the key takeaway from Rubio was that U.S. actions elsewhere, like the operations in Venezuela, will not distract or deter Beijing.
And the U.S. is putting its money where its mouth is. The House passed a $2.3 billion financing bill.
Specifically for Taiwan and the Philippines. That's foreign military financing. It's not just a loan, it's a grant to buy hardware. It puts hard currency behind the rhetoric.
Now, we often talk about governments, but what about the people? What's the vibe on the ground or online? I know you've been tracking the social media sentiment.
It's polarized, as you might expect. In China, the monster ship and that Devon Bay rescue generated a huge wave of nationalistic pride. The narrative there is that the U.S., Japan, and the Philippines are building an encirclement to strangle China.
They see themselves as breaking a siege.
Exactly. And in the Philippines, you see strong support for sovereignty. People are tired of Filipino fishermen being harassed. But there's also a palpable anxiety.
No one wants a war.
No one wants to be the battlefield for a superpower war, and the rest of ASEAN, they're terrified. They're urging caution because they know if the elephants fight, the grass gets trampled.
Speaking of things getting trampled, there is a wild card here that no admiral can control: the environment.
This is the black swan we can't ignore. We are talking about the Ring of Fire. On January 29th, a magnitude 6.0 earthquake struck the Moro Gulf in the Philippines.
And that's just a tremor compared to what some experts are predicting.
Right. On January 20th, a report surfaced warning of a high probability, we're talking 60 to 90%, of a massive magnitude 7.5 or 8.0 event in that region within the next 30 years.
A quake that size creates tsunamis.
It changes the map. If a disaster like that hits, all these L-shaped blockades and destroyers suddenly become useless for war and essential for rescue. Disaster diplomacy has historically forced cooperation, but it also exposes vulnerabilities. You can't jam a tsunami.
It's a sobering thought. Mother Nature ultimately holds the trump card. But for now, the Philippines has to navigate the politics. They're the ASEAN chair for 2026.
Which puts them in the driver's seat, but it's a very hot seat. They've taken a strong stance by rejecting the Myanmar military-backed elections. But the big prize is the Code of Conduct for the South China Sea.
We've been hearing about this Code of Conduct for 20 years. Is it actually going to happen?
Manila is pushing for it to be legally binding. They want a document with teeth, not just a gentleman's agreement. Beijing, of course, prefers vague language. Watching whether the Philippines can herd the ASEAN cats into a unified stance, that's the diplomatic battle of the year.
So let's synthesize this for the listener. We've covered a lot of ground. What's the big picture shift here?
The big picture is the transition. We have left the phase of diplomatic spats. We are now in the phase of physical impassment. The blockades are real. The jamming is blinding pilots. The monster ship is parking in sovereign waters.
And China seems to be playing a very specific game.
It's the dual-track strategy. Look at the timeline. On January 30th, China resumed political dialogue with the Philippines. They sat at the table, smiling, shaking hands.
Okay.
Then, literally the next day, January 31st, they conducted combat readiness patrols.
They talk peace on Monday and practice war on Tuesday.
Exactly. It keeps the opponent off balance. You never know which version of Beijing you're going to get, which makes it incredibly hard to calibrate a response.
So, looking ahead, what should you, the listener, be watching for in the coming weeks?
3 things. First, watch the Fujian. If that aircraft carrier moves past the first island chain into the deep Pacific, the threat radius expands significantly.
Okay, what's second?
Second, watch the ASEAN talks. Can the Philippines actually move the needle on that code of conduct?
And third?
Watch the drills. The U.S., Japan, and the Philippines are going to hold more joint exercises. Watch specifically if they practice breaking a blockade. If they start rehearsing that, they're expecting the fishing boat wall to become a permanent fixture.
It's a region moving very fast, and the margin for error is getting thinner by the day. Before we sign off, I want to circle back to the tool that allowed us to pull all these disparate threads together.
Stylo News. We mentioned the location AI bot earlier. That was crucial for the pattern of life analysis on those 2,000 fishing boats.
And the system uses vector search to ingest, over 250 sources in more than 20 languages.
And it converts all that data into insight in under 60 seconds. It's really the best way to cut through the noise.
So if you want to build your own intelligence-style briefs on topics like this or anything else going on in the world, you can download the mobile or computer app right now.
Go to www.stylonews.com.
That's www.stylonews.com. You can customize your feed to get AI-powered news on demand, just like the brief we provided for you today.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We know your time is valuable. We hope this helped you understand not just what is happening, but why it all matters.
It's a shifting world, and we love breaking it down with you. If there are other topics you'd like us to cover, please request them. And follow Stylo News on your favorite social media.
And here's a final thought to take with you. With the Philippines chairing ASEAN, and with new gas resources suddenly on the table, how long can the gray zone remain gray before a red line is crossed?
Something to think about. Until next time.